everyone. Welcome to Women in Retail Talks, the podcast where C-suite executive women in the retail space share their stories of professional growth, leadership development, personal journeys, and more. I'm Melissa Campanelli, the co-founder of the Women in Retail Leadership Circle. And for those of you who don't know us, we are a membership-based community of senior-level women in retail. I'm thrilled to be here today with Carolyn D'Angelo, who is the Senior Managing Director and Head of Brand Operations at Gordon Brothers. Carolyn is a seasoned retail and brand building executive with more than 30 years of experience transforming iconic brands through strategic marketing, licensing, partnerships, and innovation. Throughout her career, Caroline has helped grow and revitalize some of the world's most recognizable names, including Laura Ashley, Martha Stewart, Sur La Table, Ralph Lauren, Home, Waverly, and Disney Home. At Gordon Brothers, she leads global brand operations and works with a portfolio of consumer brands, including Nicole Miller, Broyhill, Rachel Zoe, and others, helping drive growth and create long-term value. In addition to her executive leadership roles, Carolyn is a passionate mentor and educator, having taught at the Fashion Institute of Technology for more than 25 years. She also serves on several consumer brand and industry boards. Carolyn, we are thrilled to have you with us today to share your insights on leadership, brand transformation, and the future of retail. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we're so thrilled. We've known each other sort of off and on through the years. I know you've been to a lot of our events and you're a fabulous member. So we're so thrilled that you decided to take the time today and do this podcast with us. So I'm just going to jump in with some questions, and I'm excited to talk a little bit about your background. So you've built an incredible career spanning iconic brands, as I said earlier, like Disney, Ralph Lauren, Martha Stewart. Now you're with Nicole Miller, and you've done Laura Ashley. Can you take us back to the beginning of your journey and share like maybe one or two pivotal moments that you feel helped shape you as a leader?
Yes, I will take you back to the very beginning of my career, which was at JCPenney. Believe it or not, I was an assistant buyer and I was based in the New York office before JCPenney moved down to Texas. And pivotal for me at that point was having an unbelievable mentor and boss. I was very fortunate in my first role to have somebody that I was able to view how he operated, which was basically respecting people, keeping great relationships with vendors, treating everybody with respect from the CEO all the way to an entry level person, like an entry level designer. And
Mm.
that really set the stage for me as to how to act in the business world to be respected. And I was very young at that point. A couple of other very key things for me in my career journey were learning about branding from two of the best companies, I believe, in the world of branding that I use very often in my teaching, which are Disney and Ralph Lauren. Both of these brands know how to treat brands respectfully. They know how to stay true to their brand DNA, and they really have very high standards and they do not bend. And that was very good lesson for me because in branding, which is really where most of my career has been, it's very important to recognize a brand as an asset. And once damage occurs to that asset, it's hard to recover from that.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, that actually is such a great dovetail to my next question because I know that you're all about brands. We've talked about it, how important brands and branding are to you. So, and you spent your career revitalizing and growing brands. So what have you learned, about what it takes to keep an iconic brand relevant and meaningful, especially to today's consumer?
I love this question because, especially in my current role at Gordon Brothers, we love a brand revitalization story. Some of the brands that I've worked on in the portfolio have been brands that have been, great brands at one point in their heritage, but were either stuck in an operating model that didn't work or, became not relevant to the consumer. So I think what's really important when I look at any brand in terms of whether we're acquiring or working on this brand is who is our consumer? Who is she? What does our brand mean to her? And what is our unique selling proposition? Why is she going to spend her money on my brand versus another brand? Because quite frankly, the brands that I have worked on in my career are brands that are really wants. The consumer is spending disposable income on a brand and a product or a service because she wants to. I am not working with CPG brands. I'm not working with, food such as milk and bread, things that are staple needs in someone's life. It's
Hmm.
really more about the want. So, Laura Ashley, I'll just use as a really great example, which is a brand I love, love, love. Gordon Brothers acquired it out of an administration. And I would say when we acquired it, it was, I want to use the word, a little outdated, a little older, a little, I hate to use the word stuffy because I love this brand, but it was a brand in need of becoming relevant again and creating wonderful new product and doing that through great collaborations with brands such as Rag and Bone. Unexpected, but very timely. We did a wonderful collab. So we, you know, the revitalization of a brand, you really have to do a deep dive and understand who the customer is and what your brand brings to her and keep that fresh.
Yeah, that is so important. That's a great example too with Laura Ashley. And I know how you love Laura Ashley. We've talked about that before as well. Um, so obviously branding is part of your DNA. It's a big, huge part of your career and what you work on every day. But you've also worked across, licensing, marketing, general retail. So I would just love to get your perspective on how having this sort of broad kind of look at the way the industry works. How has that influenced the way that you make strategic decisions today? Because you really have like a global perspective from your career.
Yeah, I actually am very fortunate that I have that kind of perspective because I think when you're working with partners, if you've ever been in that partner's shoes, you kind of have an understanding for what they're going through and what their goals are. So, as an example, the world of licensing, there's two sides to that. There's the licensee, the person that's actually manufacturing the product for you, and then there's the brand owner, the licensor. I've sat on both sides of the table. So I'm very empathetic when dealing with my current partners, licensees, because I sat where they sat and I know the things that they need to try to accomplish. So I try to put myself in their shoes. In terms of retail, starting out, my career when I was at Penny's, I got a really good education on retail, in an executive training program that was wonderful.
Mm,
And I was we need our retailers. They're our partner in this whole branding world because they're the vehicle that speaks to the end consumer in a lot of ways. So we need those partnerships as well. And I think that having all of these different experiences made me and make me a better leader and a better steward of brands.
yep. That makes sense. It's almost like, having all of that experience and all those different, getting that knowledge from all those different areas of the company helped you even like the brands even more and help you understand and have more appreciation, I guess, for the brand
Yes.
is a good
Yes.
way to put it. I'd love to talk to you a little bit now about your work at FIT. I know that it's a real great part of your career. You're a longtime mentor and professor there. You've helped shape the next generation of leaders. What advice do you find yourself giving to young professionals today, and what qualities do you believe define great leaders today? I know that's a mouthful, but whatever you can share there would be great.
Yeah. First of all, I'm so privileged to be able to educate the next generation. And I've been associated with FIT for over 20 years. Love working with students, love learning from students. Quite frankly, they make me better at what I do. I treat students as I would any business associate because they need to be respected. Their opinions matter, and I try to tell them lessons that I've learned that I feel have helped me in my career. Things like being a good listener. Listening is a very underrated skill, but it's a very, very important skill for any leader or any manager of people to be able to listen. I think networking is something that I constantly talk about with my students because you never know where you're going to be in your next role, and building your network early on and keeping updated with your network is super important for all of us. And Melissa, the Women in Retail organization is certainly a way in which I'm building my network still, even at
Mm,
my age and my career. There are many, many people that I'm meeting that I'm so fortunate. to be meeting throughout some of the events that I've attended with women in retail. So learning, listening, being empathetic to people's situations, and also really that network. That is where things happen. It's the networking that makes the world go round.
Yeah, it's so true. That is so true. And it's great to understand that at a young age, I'm
Yeah.
sure that's great advice for the folks that you're working with. Um, I wanna jump in a little bit to what you're working on now. We talked that you were the senior managing director and head of brand operations at Gordon Brothers. I don't know if you can just share some of the brands, I guess, that you're working with now. You mentioned Laura Ashley, but now you're working with Nicole Miller. I know you're working with Rachel Zoe. I don't know if you could talk about some sort of opportunities and challenges you're seeing right now, in your role currently with some of the brands you're working on.
Let me just talk about kind of how we view brands and, looking at growth and how we value a brand. When we're looking at a brand to acquire or to invest in, the first thing we really do is what we call a deep dive. We really, really want to understand who that consumer is, what's
Mm,
the brand aesthetic, what's the mission for the brand, what does the brand stand for, what are the brand extensions, where is the brand being sold, all of that background information. So when we invested in a brand, let's say like a Nicole Miller and a Rachel Zoe, we have to do these deep dives because we have to understand if there are growth opportunities and what is that overused word white space, but it
mhm,
really fits the bill. What is that opportunity for growth, whether it's new product categories, new services, new geographic territories? So both of those brands and all of the brands, we have 7 in the portfolio now. All of the brands that we have invested in and acquired have demonstrated that there's a lot of room for growth. And, the, Rachel Zoe brand is a little bit newer in the portfolio versus in Nicole.
mhm,
But even though we acquired them at different times, there's still opportunities with Nicole that we're working on that we're super excited about, new things. And there's a huge open white space for the Rachel Zoe brand as well. So that's really how we look at unlocking the value. That's what we did with Laura Ashley. When I joined Gordon Brothers, it was really to head up the Laura Ashley reimagination. And I had always admired this brand, Melissa. It was like one of my favorite brands. I remember shopping for it. I remember buying things for my children from the store. And I knew there was this little jewel, and I knew the timing in the macro world was right for a reinvention of this brand with macro trends like cottage core and
mm,
brands loving floral, and all of a sudden everybody wanted to wear floral dresses. So the timing was really right. So we also like consider what's going on in the macro environment when we look to create the strategy for growth. So I've been so fortunate I love brand strategy and I love diving into a brand to figure out, what can we do with this brand? Because most brands, there's something that would stick. There's very few
yeah.
brands that were like, ah, this brand is dead. There's always ways to revive things.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the secret sauce, right? I mean,
Yep.
it kind of jumps into my next question, which is, how do you sort of balance honoring a brand's heritage but continuing to innovate? That must be really challenging.
It is but you have to because a brand is really represents like an emotional connection with a consumer. Again, I always use this example with my students. White towels or white towels or white towels. Why would you spend more money on a branded towel from whatever brand, like a Ralph Lauren versus a no name brand that's just a label? Why? Because you're emotionally connected. You subscribe to the Ralph Lauren lifestyle. You want to, you love that classic look. So having that story and expanding upon that story to us is really, really important. We have 2 brands in our portfolio now that were UK born and bred heritage brands. One is LK Bennett and the
Mm,
other is Radley, 2 of our newest brands. They're both were founded in the UK. So we're crafting our strategies now, and we know that we have to get the brand revived in its homeland in the UK. That's where it was born. And we really want to bring it back to glory in that territory of the UK. And then we have a story and we can bring it around the rest of the world. And, that I love a brand with a story. And that's another thing that we look at when acquiring brands. What is the story? What's the heritage? What's the history? You have to recognize that, but you have to then modernize and bring it into today's world. And things like collabs can help do that. Like I mentioned earlier, we did several collabs with Laura Ashley that were very timely and brought the brand in front of a new consumer in an unexpected way. So that's really an important way. We don't just acquire a brand and then, start over again. There's that story that needs to be built upon.
I love that. I love the idea of looking outside and doing collabs or finding strategic partners to help you along. And I'm
Yeah,
excited because Caroline's actually going to be speaking about this topic at our Women in Retail event that's taking place in New York City on October 20th. So I'm
that's
excited to hear
exciting.
more.
Love this topic.
Yeah. This has been so great. I just love hearing about this. I can tell how passionate you are about all of this. So I'd love to just kind of take it back to looking back on your career. Is there one leadership lesson that has stayed with you? And as you look ahead, what excites you? I guess it's a two-part question. One leadership lesson that stayed with you. And then as you look ahead, what excites you the most about the future when it comes to retail and brands or brand building, whatever you feel comfortable talking about?
Lead how you want to be led. Respect, listen, surround yourself with great people. Because quite frankly, I'm nothing without the team of people that surrounds me, that works with me, that inspires me, that is passionate. We and truly are a team. This isn't a dictatorship here. And
Mhm.
I value people. And I say I would want to be led this way. So I always try to keep that in mind and remember that, when making decisions, because sometimes leaders do have to make tough decisions, but you do it in a respectful way and you do it in a way in which you would like to be treated. Um, Exciting future. Wow. I mean, it's just insane what's going on and I'm we all talk about AI, and thank God there's so many wonderful young students and people coming up that have embraced and know this world so much more than I do. I need to learn more about it. But again, surround yourself with people that understand just the endless opportunities that are going to be and are already available, that make us do our jobs better and help us. And AI is a tool. It's not a replacement for people. It is a tool that can be used by people to help us do our jobs better. So I also love the retail landscape. I just want to put that out there that, many years ago when I started my career, there was numerous department stores in the United States that were all bought and sold and, merged into basically one company. But the changing retail landscape, I think, is super interesting. I think it's really interesting that the consumer, she likes to cross shop. She has no problem going to a variety of different places to experience things. And that treasure hunt in certain distribution channels has really inspired people to come back into the store, which I love. At one point, Melissa, I don't know if you remember, like people were thinking, like, oh my gosh, we're not going to have brick and mortar. Oh no, yes, we are, because people like experiences. And so there's a room for the world of e-com, but there's also clearly growing brick and mortar opportunities that it's exciting. It's every day is exciting. I love getting up and coming every day because it's something new and that's just inspiring.
Yeah, it's so true about retail. I've been kind of tangentially in this industry for many years, and then you're always hearing about the death of retail, and then the next thing you know, there's a huge resurgence, and there's amazing stories coming out of great retail stories, and also the stores. I mean, we were just at Commerce Next a couple of months ago, and there was so many great stories on stage and in our pavilion about what some experiential retail experiences that some stores are doing. So it is so exciting. So I'm
It
glad.
really is. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just like experiences, and even think about like in the world of licensing, experiences are equally as important now as products for a brand. So, that experience of being in a hotel that is synonymous with a brand, or being in an amusement park that is synonymous with a brand. I mean, it's just such a really fun world, because it's not just about a physical product, it's also about experiences, and I really feel like brick and mortar retail, there's some very exciting retailers to walk into, so that keeps me going.
Yeah, it's great. Well, Caroline, it was so great chatting with you. I'm so glad we finally were able to do this. Good luck with all of the great stuff you have going on at Gordon Brothers.
Thank
As I mentioned, I'm looking forward to seeing you in New York in about a couple months here, and keeping the conversation going. So thanks so much, and hope to connect again soon.
thank you so much, Melissa.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please go to womeninretail.com/podcast for show notes. Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, SiriusXM's Pandora, YouTube, and YouTube Music. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate, review, and subscribe. Lastly, if you're a female retail leader interested in joining our community at Women in Retail Leadership Circle, visit womeninretail.com/apply. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.